Like one thing I do recommend, like whenever I read a question, I try to ask myself, okay, what concept is being questioned? What is being questioned without looking at the answers. So I was covering the answers, um, and I was saying, okay, what concept is being asked? And then I tried to crack it without looking at the multiple choice. And once I had an idea, I started looking at the answers. I was like, okay, yeah, this could be it. Elimination method, which everyone knows there's always going to be two that are the best. So I need to put my knowledge into test because the test has a lot of variables. You have time, you have the situation of getting to question 140, and you all of a sudden decide, oh, I'm so close to finish, I'm just going to do the last 10 questions as quick as possible. I want to get out of here, And then you have to have the mindset of like question 1 and question 150 are as important. So the difficulty of the test is having that focus and giving importance to every question from 1 to 150. So 150 needs to get the same amount of love as number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to question 140, I started looking at the door because I took it in the test facility. I started looking at the door and I was like, no. You gotta, these last 10 questions could be decisive because it could be the ones that are going to make you pass. Because I hear stories, people failing on a few points. I hear people failing on 10, 20 points, 30 points, which tells me, hey, maybe they didn't give it much attention to the last 10 questions. Because it's very hard to sit 4 hours and have the same mental capacity from question, let's say 2 to 35. You start feeling a diminishing factor of your brain power starting to not be as good. I know that you have a strategy where you say, hey, try starting from question 50 to 100. And then, that could be the easier question, and then go to 1. So many people try different ways, but however you do the puzzle, make sure that when you click the next question, you give it the same amount of love and importance and energy, and always think like this question could be the detrimental factor of me failing the test. And I need to make sure I get it right, So.
Hello everyone, welcome to CISA This Much. This is Aditya, and today we have with us Narek, who has recently qualified CISA in the first attempt. Narek, first of all, heartiest congratulations for qualifying the exam in the first attempt. Before we ask you anything else, I know it's a happy moment for you. How are you feeling from your end, clearing this exam, one of the gold standard certification for IS audits?
Thank you, Aditya. First off, I really appreciate us creating this time, to connect together. I am feeling a little starstruck, as I say to people that I haven't seen in a while because I've been watching your videos for such a long time, and now that I see you live, it's like seeing a celebrity. But yes, to answer your question, I feel like I have my life back because the last 4 months of this journey, I was really studying, watching your videos, studying. So it's nice to have one less thing to worry about, especially for professionals that have so many things to do, work, family, you have to go to your kids, parent-teacher meeting, you have to do this task, and studying is very difficult. So it's been nice to have one less thing to worry about, and this one thing is very important because the amount of work it requires to be able to pass. So I feel really happy, feel I can breathe.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to you, your program, the way it built the foundation for me, and it fit that difficult schedule that I had. It was programmed in a way that it was possible with someone that was very busy to be able to make it happen.
Correct. I fully agree with you in the point which you mentioned that especially for working professionals, they have huge work pressure, work commitments, and work is just one part of your life. You have your own family responsibilities, you have other responsibilities as well, and then devoting time for the exam. It's not something very shortcut, something wherein you can just finish this exam in a span of 1 week or something like that. It requires dedication, it requires efforts, it requires hard work, it requires positive mindset, so kudos to you for that, for clearing the exam in the first attempt. My I mean, before I ask you anything else, can you please introduce yourself, your background, especially, like, what made you decide, okay, let me go for this certification, CISA?
Yeah, good question. So my bachelor's is in finance. However, I began my professional journey in the auditing field. So, I landed a job in a big four, working on the financial auditing side of the story, and did that for a few years. And then right around COVID is when I transitioned onto the IS audit side, and again, big picture, external IS audit. So providing mostly external IS auditing services. Um, so I would say I've been in this journey for about five. This is my fifth year that I've been doing, IS audits.
Got
Um, with a finance background, got this certification because it was, one of the top things that you usually see for this specific role. And if you do not have this certification, then it is something that you might want to get. And in some companies is almost a requirement, even to proceed to the next level. And it's pretty obvious why it's needed, because it just puts a stamp on all the experience that you've got and says, hey, not only is this person experienced, but also has passed this extremely tricky exam that only someone that has had some experience and a good amount of learning can crack it. So
Correct. It does open a lot of opportunities for you once you are certified holder, for sure. Like, is there any requirement from the employer side? Like, I know some people who are in Big Four, they I mean, before they even think of like doing these certifications, they immediately get this requirement from their bosses, from their department head, saying that we are looking for people who can do this certification voluntarily. It will be good for your career. So what do you feel like, is there a culture in US wherein in Big Four they ask you for these certifications, or is it a culture which has become like, if the other guy has done that, he has got more offers, more a hike in the pay scale, or more good opportunities, or good promotion, something of like that, and because of that, people are doing these certifications. So
yeah, no, that's a very, very, very good question. So it has an evolving nature. And why evolving? Because of the the environment that we're living now, and work itself. Every single department has an IT functionality in it. And since 2020, the usage of IT in all businesses has really grown to the extent where it's become an expectation. If you're doing something relating to audit, specifically information systems, then it in some places it's not set in straight bullet points. It's a requirement, but it's expected, and you often cannot excel in that specific role if you are not certified. And CISA happens to be one of the most important ones for this specific field, especially in the US. If you look online, and a lot of jobs are absolutely mention it. I mean, if it doesn't mention it, that there's something wrong about that role, right? Um, so yes, to answer your question, it's become a requirement in a lot of places and an expectation in a lot of places for this specific role. Now, again, the test itself hits on a lot of domains. So I'm speaking from the perspective that the auditing world. I know there's a lot of security as well in there. So a lot of security roles also put it as an expectation to have the CISA. I know C-Risk is another one that's becoming kind of popular. So yes, to answer your question short, it is expected.
Got it. You have raised a very good point. Sometimes it may not be mandatory for you, but the way the environment, the industry works, it's something which they may not tell you straightforward, but it's required. Okay, okay. So it's not that someone will come to you and they will tell you. Okay, that also happens, but again, it may or it may not happen. However, these certifications helps you, to be in this industry, you to, and especially I also feel that the way the syllabus is designed, especially they added a lot of amendments part, they added a lot of new things, new industry trends, which as an auditor we are supposed to know, like for example AI, data privacy, lot of things on the encryption, cryptography part. So these things you are supposed to know, because no one will tell you that okay, you are supposed to update yourself, but this is something, if as an IS auditor, if you do not have understanding or knowledge about it, it will definitely create issues, in the long term, for sure. Yeah. So I agree with your point, and my next question to you is, so how much time it took for you? I mean, I know, again, this is a subjective question. Some people, for them, they work entire day, they don't have any work pressure, they don't have any responsibility, they are studying the entire day, they are able to clear the exam in 2 3 months, 4 months. So for some people, especially who are working professionals, they have a lot of other responsibilities. For them it might take more time. I mean, again, I just want to understand, let's say if a person is dedicatedly studying for like up 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours every day, so how much time will it take for that person, managing everything, work, family life, other responsibilities, everything, especially I ask this question, for people working in big four, because they have to deal with multiple clients, they have multiple, I can understand, I mean, if I see a guy who's working in who's not working in big four versus a guy working in big four, again, this is something which we see, in India, we see in Asian countries, that they people working in big four, they have more work, because they need to work with multiple clients. Okay, it's not that you are just working for one client, you are working for multiple, you are handling multiple clients, so you have work pressure, you have deadlines, you need to you have your own schedule. So how did you manage everything? How much time it took for you when you were like, okay, no, let me seriously start studying for it? And I mean, I just want to know your journey on this.
Yeah, yeah. The most important question, right, to the puzzle is the one you just mentioned. So my journey is probably one of the inspiring ones, I would say, to people that are CISA aspirants. Because if I was able to do it, then I think a lot of people will. Why? Because I started this journey in 2021, and without any effort, I just told myself, okay, this is a certification I would like to get. So back in 2021, I had purchased the CISA manual. I went through it. It was very dry, no pictures, just very concrete, like black and white, all different types of stuff that I was getting hit by that I hadn't, seen much. And back then I was still very new to the IS audit world. So for me, it was very difficult to grasp the knowledge. So it took me a good time in 2021 to get through the book. And I was like, I feel like, I'm not prepared because I didn't have the IT background. Because, an IS audit, if you think about it, I'm sure you very well know, is two pieces. There's the audit side, and then there's the IT side, where you have to know certain IT/IS concepts. You have to know how how an IT environment drives a business. So I didn't have the full picture. And then one of those days, I was looking at CISA material on YouTube, and back then it was it was still very not much discussed on YouTube. I couldn't find much material, and then I stumbled on your domain to video, and I was like, "Oh, this is crazy timing because I've been looking for something like this." Um, And how you approached domain two was very interesting. Why? Because you started with the baby steps, which is very important, which the CISA book doesn't really do much. Yes, it has amazing knowledge. A lot of people have passed the exam just using the CISA manual, but I think those are, I can probably count the number of people have done that on my fingers, because there's always a supplemental approach taken. It's very difficult to just use the book and pass. So domain two is incredible. Baby steps, talking about foundation, why IT is important, how it's related to businesses. You kind of talked about literally going from pen and paper to business now using a computer. Like that granular level of detail you started talking about, and you've painted the whole picture, which was important to understand before you even dive deep into concepts. So for me, that was what made me choose CISA this much. And I really wish you have more, you have more courses on different ISACA certifications, because I think it is one of the best out there. So, and my journey is back to my journey. I know I didn't talk about that part. So 2021, went through the book. It didn't work for me. And then I was like, okay, this domain two video from Aaditya is amazing. I'm going to purchase the course and start studying. So 2021, I didn't have a vision. I just started watching the videos while I'm driving, in between, work, lunch breaks, and, just any time I had free. So there was no vision board. It was basically treating it as a Netflix series, and just whenever I have time, I'm going to watch. So believe it or not, from 2021 until 2024, I played the game of going through domain one to domain three, and then something happens, whether it's work, personal life, that the momentum stops. And then I have to restart. Why? Because months have passed where I haven't seen the material, and I'm like, well, I'm going to start domain four and domain five, but one to three, I don't remember anything. How am I going to be able to, answer any question? So I restart the loop. So believe it or not, 3 years, I have restarted the loop of domain one to domain three. So towards the end of 2024, I was like, okay, this is not working. These videos are really good. I need to have a game plan, because I have the best material at hand, and I just need to find the right formula. So I purchased from Amazon like a mini whiteboard, and I literally wrote, this is what I want to take the exam, this specific date, this specific day, this is how many weeks I have, and this every day, this is how many hours I'm going to devote to studying. Like, it was a very detailed vision board. Like, this is what I want to accomplish. Treating it as a Netflix series is not working out. I need to have a detailed plan. You know what I mean? I did reach out to you back then. I said, hey, this is when I want to take the test. I think I did mention it to you. And you said, hey, kudos to you that, you focused to get this done. And, I put every week 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. So it wasn't like driving a car and watching videos. No, it was sitting on a table, taking a notebook, taking important notes, 2 hours in the morning, and then 2 hours at night. And mind you, I did that during busy season. So, I took the exam in April, and I started studying around December. So it was right around where it was the peak of busy season for me. And going back to why I said earlier, if I was able to do it, anyone else could, is because I did it in such a busy time during, my audit life here, that I think anybody else can. And the vision board is, really important. Setting specific slots of time to study, when to take the exam, registering for the exam. So this is high level. I know I talked a lot. I'm going to pass the mic back to you. And if there's any questions on this specific formula that I'd mentioned, go ahead and let me know, and I can talk more about it.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I mean, I'm like your journey seems very inspirational. I always say that if you want to start something, it's completely fine, like as you mentioned, you started your journey way back in 2021, even though you didn't have a strong goal in your mind that by this month and I need to give this exam. However, to create that interest, that is also important, because very few people understand this thing. It's not something you're doing it only for the sake of certification, only for the sake of uh, degree or something, because there are a lot of people who do these certifications just for the sake of having a piece of paper, and they may clear the exam in a span of 3 or 4 months, but then what after that? Because you need to really enjoy, you need to really have that interest develop. That, of course, that also has its own cost. That takes some time, to develop the interest. So I will not say that okay, you didn't study at all, way back in 3-4 years back. I mean at least you build that environment, you build that interest, because as you mentioned, coming from the finance background and moving towards the IT, developing that love for IT, especially, we know, we have seen a lot of people, they have these certifications, but when you talk to them, they are like, oh, okay, I just did that, because I had this requirement from my manager. That's the reason I did. But if you ask me personally, I don't have interest working here in this field. So that is, I mean your journey is 100 times way better than those people who were able to clear in a short span of time, but they don't really love that journey, they don't really have interest for it. So I think that is also very, very core and an important thing, which you have. Okay, so again, that does take time, but and as you mentioned one thing, that when you had that vision in your mind, and that's very inspirational sentence which you made, that having a vision board right in front of you. Again, some people believe in it, some people do not believe in it, but then when you have the goal right in front of you, and when you keep looking into it every day, you start realizing, okay, why I am doing this, because I have my goal right in front of me and I need to do this. Okay, because sometimes
Yes.
what happens is
Yes.
that we know that this is important for us. There are a lot of things important for us, right? But we don't do everything, right? There are so many things important for us, but that doesn't mean that we are doing everything in our day-to-day life. But when you have that right vision in front of you, okay, why I'm doing it, why I need okay, what's the deadline for it, you start getting those energy, right within you, that okay, let me just try to push myself,
Yes.
yeah. So I mean that works like magic. And as you mentioned, that you had the busiest season, but even after that you were able to make it in the first attempt. Eventually, if I see a journey, you studied like 4 to 5 months only, with whole heart dedication. But yeah, so this is what even recommended by ISACA, that you need to devote 5 to 6 months of full fledged of with proper schedule and proper timetable, and you did that.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
again, I mean, you are definitely, your journey will inspire a lot of people. And I want to say to everyone that if this guy can do it, even you can do it. And n- I mean, you need to try it, yourself. You need to have these strategies, because no one is going to come and literally push you. You need to get up in the morning, or you need to devote some time after your working hours. I know, it might sound very easy, it might sound very silly, or very, very something which anyone can do, but it is not that easy. I know the motivation it requires, the dedication it requires, that even putting 1 hour every day, it's not a joke. It's not, it's something that you are sincerely motivated towards doing something, and you value it. That's why you are doing it. If you do not value it, you will not do it. So creating.
Yes. It's something about this the vision board. Going back to it, which I want to add to what you said. Even having that on my table let's say there was a day I didn't study, something happened. Just seeing it subconsciously created that cloud on top of me, that the CISA cloud, I call it, wherever I walk, that I subconsciously, that is something I know that I need to do. And seeing that board every day, maybe not reading it, but just seeing it while I'm working, it's in the background. It's in my, blind spot, I could see it whenever I look. It helped create that, hey, I have to get this done. And especially that you mentioned the amendments that were very, very, pretty dense. I think also very important because on the test, I did get a good amount of questions from the amendments. Domain 1 to 3 were very tricky. I think because those domains are a little less technical, more conceptual. I think the questions were geared to make person get things wrong, but then domain 4 and 5 were more straight to the point. Difficult, but more straight to the point. And then 1 to 3 were very tricky questions. But something I tell a lot of my colleagues that are also CISA aspirants is, I'm going to give a good analogy, and you can steal this from me. Is like, for example, let's say you want to play basketball. You open the rule book, you buy a basketball book, and you study everything about basketball. In your mind, you're like, okay, I know everything. I've studied every single page. I know this. I'm ready for a game. And then you step into the basketball court and you realize that although you know everything, you haven't been tested on the field. You know what I mean? So this is kind of the same thing. And that's where your mock exams come into play is, okay, I've attained all this knowledge. That doesn't mean I'm going to pass. I need to put my knowledge into test because the test has a lot of variables. You have time. You have the situation of, getting to question 140 and you all of a sudden decide, oh, I'm so close to finish. I'm just going to do the last 10 questions as quick as possible. I want to get out of here, And then you have to have the mindset of like question 1 and question 150 are as important. So the difficulty of the test is having that focus and giving importance to every question from 1 to 150. So 150 needs to get the same amount of love as number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to question 140, I started looking at the door because I took it in the test facility. I started looking at the door and I was like, no. You gotta, these last 10 questions could be decisive because it could be the ones that are going to make you pass. Because I hear stories, people failing on a few points. I hear people failing on 10, 20 points, 30 points, which tells me, hey, maybe they didn't give it much attention to the last 10 questions. Because it's very hard to sit 4 hours and have the same mental capacity from question, let's say 2 to 35, you start feeling a diminishing factor of your brain power starting to not be as good. I know that you have a strategy where you say, hey, try starting from question 50 to 100. And then, that could be the easier question and then go to 1. So many people try different ways, but however you do the puzzle, make sure that when you click the next question, you give it the same amount of love and importance and energy, and always think like this question could be the detrimental factor of me failing the test. And I need to make sure I get it right, So that's the analogy. You have to take the knowledge and put it into test. Studying only is not enough. And that's how your mock exams were perfect. You had time. There was a time concept, giving 90 seconds to every question. They were portrayed in a way that were very similar to the test, and it was, it was perfect.
You know what? I am taking these interview sessions since past 4 years now. But no one till now has mentioned this point, and it's something. It just really hit me. Yeah, it's so important that which you rightly mentioned, that you need to give the right amount of attention and love even for the last 10 questions, because there is a diminishing what to say, a law which works wherein
Factor, yeah.
your enthusiasm, your interest, your way of reading that start getting depleted, and especially it also important that you have that energy in it, because I know sitting for 4 hours without having anything, without eating anything, without having that energy in your mind, it does require practice. It does require a lot of practice, and you never know which question has helped you clear the exam, which question will make your results go into the negative zone. So you don't know about it, and also the fact that it's not that every question has got the equal marks, equal weightage. They have their own mechanisms, and it's not that everything has got the equal weightage. This is not how the ISACA has set their exam question set. I mean it works on a different way. If one question entire globe is answering right, that question becomes less important for them. It's like, okay, everyone is answering it. Okay, we will not be giving this question good marks. One question everyone is answering wrong, but Narek has answered it right. Oh my God, you deserve to be an auditor, and we will declare you. So this is how their algorithm is set. That if you have answered some questions really well, where others cannot answer it right, even though your score could be less, but still you will clear the exam for sure, because they understand that, okay, no, these were the questions which which helps us understand, okay, this is the guy we need to give our certification, we need to give our license to this guy, he deserves it. Yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
really really good point you have mentioned, and it requires practice. It requires practice. You cannot on day one have this develop, and this is not something. If I tell you please focus on all the 150 questions, and you'll be okay, yeah, I can do it. It's not something you can learn, and you can. It's something which you need to practice. It's something which you need to understand what to eat before giving these exams, what breakfast you need to do in order to have that mental energy for the next 4 hours. Yeah, these 4 hours will be brainstorming session for me. I need to understand how to be in that energy zone, energy mode. So yeah, that's
Especially for people that have not been in the testing environment for a long time, because I know there's some CIS aspirants that have probably not taken the test in 15 years, or maybe there's people fresh out of college that are already in that momentum. They already have that drive because they've been studying for their bachelor's, their master's. So, for example, me, I hadn't had taken a test in a very long time. So I had forgotten how it feels to take a test. So for me, it was very important doing your mocks, and I also take the practice exams that ISACA had. I think there were 3 of them. So it was very, very, very important to learn how to take a test. I think that's a skill that needs to be learned. I'm not saying it's for everyone. Some people can just study the book and they go and they pass. I think majority of people will require to re-enhance their skill of test taking and learning the ISACA questions and how do they come, where are they trying to trick you. Like one thing I do recommend, like whenever I read a question, I try to ask myself, okay, what concept is being questioned? What is being questioned without looking at the answers. So I was covering the answers, and I was saying, okay, what concept is being asked? And then I tried to crack it without looking at the multiple choice. And once I had an idea, I started looking at the answers. I was like, okay, yeah, this could be it. Elimination method, which everyone knows there's always going to be 2 that are the best. So I used your strategies, where you have a lot of videos where you just explain how to go by the question and how to minimize and remove this question, and look at the bold statements or look at the some of the words. So yeah, test taking is something else that people need to also re-enhance while they're going through the CISA manual or your videos, and just reevaluate how are they taking the test. Are they good at taking tests? Because a lot of people, they're not good at taking tests, and they have to put more time by doing more practice questions. And it's not just doing questions, it's doing questions with the time variable. if there is no time variable, it you don't get the same feel like the actual exam.
Correct. Correct. And you also mentioned that, there are domains like domain 1 and domain 2, domain 3, wherein the amendments question, yeah, those domains are designed in such a way that you cannot have direct question all the time. They will play with you, and they only have these domains to play with you. They cannot play in domain number 5 with auditors, because they know that most of the people are either from, they are financial auditors, they are CPA, they are ACCAs, they are CAs, they are CFAs. They have different backgrounds. We cannot play with domain number 5. The only domain left for them is to play with domain number 1, domain number 2, domain number 3 at the max. Again, domain number 3 has got slight technical areas into it. However, these are the domains where they can play. But then there are domains like 4 and 5 where, most of the CISA aspirants, they are afraid of these two domains, because these are the domains which ask you to understand about the information security. It asks you, it requires you to understand how you're gonna protect your data, confidentiality, integrity, availability, and you go in depth into each and every area. You understand a lot of tools, a lot of controls. We have learned IDS, IPS, firewall, these tools. There's so many amendments on it. uh, Again, as far as what I know, that the exam questions, if you know the concept, for example, there is zero trust. uh, Again, I have never seen they asking any difficult question on zero trust architecture.
Exactly.
If you know the
Exactly.
concept, if you know, okay, this is what it's
Yes.
talking about, you can answer it. But that may not work in domain number 1 and 2. So I just want to know even your opinion, like, uh, what kind of questions they generally ask in these difficult domains 4 and 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you mentioned, in my opinion, and as you mentioned, if you study domain 4 and 5 and the amendments, I think domain 4 and 5 can be leveraged as areas where you can definitely score high because they are so technical. I don't know. My version didn't have much trickiness to it, domain 4 and 5. But at the same time, if you didn't study, you're not going to get it right. So there's a lot of studying aspect to it. Yes, it's very dense. There's a lot of material, but the questions were very, very technical. You know, again, it's been a few weeks where I took the exam, but
Yeah.
the most famous concepts of domain 4 and 5 definitely appeared, no doubt. But they were not tricky. They were just straight to the point. If you know it, it didn't require much analysis. So like you either know zero trust, like you mentioned, or you don't. So the other domains, they're more a little bit more conceptual, and then the questions are more like questions in a way where you might be able to get it right. But domain 4 and 5 is like you either know it or you don't. So people need to definitely put a lot of time studying, and that's what I did. December until April was heavily domain 4 and 5. Domain 1 and 3 I had already seen for since 2021. I was repeating it, so it was cakewalk for me. It was very easy to get to understand those. But 4 and 5, because I had not visited in the past, I really heavily focused. And you even told me back then, like, hey, focus on these two domains because you haven't seen that much. So majority of my time I spent on these two domains for about 3.5, 4 months.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you for answering all our questions. I know it's slightly more in duration, but we have
That's
discussed a
fine.
lot of important things. We have discussed a lot of important strategies. Which again, I'm taking these sessions from past so many years, but I haven't find anyone I mean, mentioning so important areas, these are really, I mean, only a person who is going through this journey will understand what we're trying to say here.
Yes.
Yeah.
They say that devil's in the detail. That there's a saying that we say, devil's in the detail means that you know, you'll fail because of that one specific detail. So you have to be very detail oriented. And page 1, page 300 of the book, first video of CISA this much, last video, they're all important, because you don't know what the test is going to be heavily concentrated on, and it's a lottery game, and definitely the amendment's very important, I would say. Yeah.
And guys, you also need to have positive mindset. The way he's having, I always, I am in touch with a lot of people, and there are few people with whom I have this positive aura. I don't know what do you call and how to define this thing, but I mean, when you talk to someone, when you look into their messages, you get that vibe that this guy has positive mindset. This guy, he's thinking a lot of negative. I can understand that, and it's really important to have that mindset. If you have that mindset, no one can stop you from passing this exam in the first attempt. Yeah. So before we wind up this session, any last piece of advice you would like to give to the future CISA aspirants?
Yes.
Anything it could be. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So what stands out for me, and if I can go back in my journey, I would say most important thing is give importance to every single concept. Don't favor one thing to the other. Definitely focus on your weak points and concepts that you think you're weak in. And then when you're taking the test, give importance from question 1 to 150, and have a positive mindset, and always tell yourself, hey, I'm going to pass for sure. Because if you create a negative mindset, that definitely impacts, from my experience, passing this test. So.
All right. Thank you so much once again for sharing your entire journey with everyone. We wish you all the best for your future, and
thank you.
Relations
Thank you
again. Thank you.
Thank you.